Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's just jump right into this, okay? Because today, in this explainer, we're going to absolutely dismantle almost everything you thought you knew about the rigid, strict rules of formal writing. If you've ever agonized over an essay or a big report, constantly backspacing and deleting the word I just to sound more professional, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to dive into the fascinating, kind of hidden world of academic persuasion. And by the end of this, I promise you, the way you think about writing and the actual human writers behind the text is fundamentally going to change.
You know this rule. We all know this rule. Think about this advice from a classic 1993 style guide by Lester. Write your paper with a third-person voice that avoids "I believe" or "it is my opinion." This is exactly what every English teacher drilled into our heads from day one, right? The golden rule of professional writing is supposedly this complete, total abstention from the first person. We're essentially taught to be invisible, to let the facts do all the talking, and to project this aura of 100% unblemished objectivity. But, that begs a pretty massive question. Is academic writing actually completely objective? Like, is it really just this pristine, robotic transmission of facts straight from a laboratory into your brain? Well, today, we are officially pivoting away from that myth of the faceless, perfectly objective author. We're going to uncover the reality of how scholars actually persuade us. Because it turns out, professional writers definitely do not always play by the rules we were taught in high school. In fact, breaking those rules is very often the secret to their success.
To really anchor our explainer in the hard data, we need to look at this incredibly exhaustive study by Ken Euland, which was published in the English for Specific Purposes journal. Hyland didn't just sit around guessing about how people write. He went in and did a rigorous analysis of 240 research articles across 8 totally different disciplines. We're talking about a massive corpus of roughly 1.4 million words. He tracked exactly how often and exactly why top-tier researchers insert themselves into their own writing. And the results, they are genuinely eye-opening.
So, Section 1, Counting I and We.
Let's look at the hard evidence to see just how often these highly educated pros actually break that cardinal rule and drop an I or a we into published text. When Hyland counted the frequency of self-mentions, words like I, me, we, us, per 10,000 words, a massive statistical divide completely jumped out. In what we usually call the soft disciplines, the writers are literally everywhere in the text. Philosophy leads the whole pack with an average of 35.2 self-mentions. Marketing is right behind it at 31.5. But then, look at the hard sciences. Mechanical engineering, just 3.2 mentions per 10,000 words. Physics and biology are just as low. There's a fundamental, structural difference in how these fields operate on the page.
So why is that gap so incredibly huge? Well, in the humanities and social sciences, putting an I in your paper isn't some rookie grammatical mistake. It's not a sign of an amateur. It's a highly calculated rhetorical strategy. Just like a philosophy professor explained to Hyland, using I is absolutely crucial because, as they said, it shows your colleagues where you stand. In these fields, you're building an argument based on your own unique perspective. You're deliberately constructing a persona. You want the reader to trust you personally as a credible, smart guide navigating through really complex, sometimes totally subjective terrain.
Moving right along to Section 2, Hard Sciences versus Soft Disciplines.
This deep divide isn't just some quirky writing habit. It's about how different fields view their whole relationship with the truth, with authority, and honestly with you, the reader. In soft disciplines, writers persuade you through personal argument and stance. They're basically saying, hey, here's my view, and here's why I'm a reliable thinker. But the hard sciences, they're trying to persuade you strictly through empirical results and rigorous procedures. They want to project a reality where the experiments just seemingly run themselves. By stripping away the I, a scientist is subtly telling the reader, look, it doesn't matter who I am. Literally anyone who follows these exact steps will get the exact same result. It's a brilliant illusion of pure objectivity.
But wait, it gets even more interesting. Even when scientists do insert themselves, they play this clever little linguistic trick. Let's talk about the royal we. Hyland's research found that in the hard sciences, the pronoun I is basically non-existent. But we? Oh, it's everywhere. And what's truly wildly ironic is that even when a scientist writes a paper completely alone, literally as a single author, they still overwhelmingly use the plural we.
So why on earth do solo authors call themselves we? Well, there's this fascinating insight from a physics professor interviewed for the study. They said, I suppose we are generally encouraged to keep ourselves in the background. Using we emphasizes this. It creates this sense of false modesty, It completely diffuses the ego. It makes a bold scientific claim sound way less like one person's loud opinion and more like a gentle, collective observation. It keeps the spotlight squarely on the science, not the scientist.
Plus, that we is a really subtle strategic nod to the deeply collaborative nature of modern science. An electronic engineer made a great point, noting that using we, even when writing totally solo, is a kind of shorthand acknowledgement of the part played by my colleagues. Science is built on the shoulders of giants, right? It relies on shared labs, past breakthroughs, massive community funding. By using we, the writer safely embeds themselves right into that much larger, highly respected collective.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, the strategy of self-citation. Now, if you thought the hard sciences were just politely fading into the background, get ready for the big plot twist of this explainer. While hard scientists definitely avoid saying I in the actual text, they more than make up for it in the bibliography. A staggering 70% of all self-mentions in the hard sciences are just authors citing their own previous work. 70%. Compare that to the humanities, where self-citation is just a tiny, tiny fraction. The scientists aren't disappearing at all. Actually, scratch that. They're just hiding their self-promotion inside the reference list.
But hey, before we call them out for pure vanity, let's hear this biology researcher's perspective. They said, we are continuously building on what we've done. In these incredibly fast-moving, hyper-specialized fields like biology or physics, you are very often the only person working in your hyper-specific niche. So self-citation isn't just an ego trip, it's a vital tool. It carves out a specific lineage, it proves the progression of your work, and shows everyone you've got a sustained, rigorous track record on this exact topic.
Honestly, dropping your own name in the bibliography is an absolute masterclass in establishing professional credibility, and it does it for 3 very distinct reasons. First, it demonstrates your disciplinary credentials. It proves you've been published on this before. Second, it stakes a claim on a specific research territory, like planting your flag right in that scientific soil. And third, it shows an intimate familiarity with the community's ongoing issues. It loudly tells the reader, hey, I am an insider and I know exactly what I am doing.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Crafting a Scholarly Persona. Let's bring the whole shebang together. Why do these hidden rhetorical games, these tiny little pronoun choices and citation tricks, actually matter to us? Well, the ultimate takeaway is all about projecting authority. Choosing to use or omit a simple pronoun like I or we is literally never just about grammar. Never. It is entirely about projecting a carefully crafted impression of authority. Writers are constantly forced to choose whether to be faceless to highlight the cold hard data or personal to highlight their intellect. They have to balance the strict norms of their community with their own desire to make a bold individual claim. Every single sentence is an act of persuading you through a carefully built persona.
Think about the major academic publishers, the global gatekeepers of knowledge. To get your work published with that kind of ultimate stamp of approval, you absolutely have to master these subtle strategies. You have to know exactly when to step forward with a bold I, when to hide behind a modest we, and when to quietly drop your own name in the citations. Understanding this invisible rulebook is for sure the secret key to being accepted by any professional community.
So, that leaves us with one final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. The very next time you sit down to write an email, a business report, or an essay, ask yourself, how do you choose to construct your own authority? Are you hiding behind the data, or are you stepping out front to claim your stance? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning the text, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.